Welcome to the TMRN Time Monk Radio Network. I'm Jules, and today is Saturday the 30th of July 2011. Today we have Kostas Danaos, an author, researcher, martial artist, Nikung practitioner, and one of only 5 known Western students accepted by John Chang. Kostas has written 2 books, including The Magus of Java, Teachings of an Authentic Taoist Immortal, The Story of John Chang. John Chang was one of the first to be documented performing pyrokinesis, telekinesis, levitation, telepathy, and other paranormal abilities. Hello, Kostas. Yasas, and welcome to the WebBot Forum Roundtable.
Nice to be here.
It's good for us too. The WebBot Forum administrator is Fox, and today he'll be doing the recording and technical support of the show. Several members of the forum were kind enough to join us tonight. They include members Free Spirit, Green Meadow, Disaster Cat, Uranus Rising, and Plane. For listeners, this interview will assume you have a fairly good understanding of Mr. Danaos' work, including his book, The Magus of Java. Mr. Danaos' work is available at innertraditions.com, along with all good bookstores. His blog is blog.pamachon.gr. Pamachon is spelled Pammachon. This interview will be available on YouTube for free on the WebBot Forum channel and at the website webbotforum.com. Are you all ready to go, sir?
I'm fine.
Fantastic. The first question for today is, Kostas, in your book, you mentioned that level 4 was a significant level in Nikung when the practitioner could use his Yan energy in his Dantian and interact with Yin energy. He could then live after death, his memories carried over to the afterlife. You also mentioned that at level 4, the next levels meant you achieved twice the power of the previous level. So level 5, you had twice the power of level 4. Level 10, you had twice the power of level 9. Calculating level 72, that is 2 to the power of 69, or approximately 590 million trillion times stronger than level 3. A person at that level would almost be considered a god. Perhaps someone at that level could manifest reality and create things from thin air, like an orange or an apple, as described in the Sutras of Patanjali. What would someone at that level be able to do, sir? And did your Sifu ever tell you stories of Chan Sang Feng? And could you share them with us tonight?
No, I've never heard stories like that. I'm assuming that somebody who is at level 72 would be considered a Buddha, so that would be equivalent to the sutra that you mentioned.
Okay, and did your Sifu ever talk to you about anybody around that level, such as Chan Sang Feng?
No, not at all. You have to understand, Pak Jun was a very local Chinese tradition, and by that I mean that he had no interest in exploring things beyond what was passed on to him by his own master. So, we view a lot of these things in the West, especially today, scholastically. But for these people, they're real living traditions that are passed on as culture, as teachings, as a way of life, as part of their family, part of what they do every day. They're not on a pedestal. They're not removed from them. They are not the Western scholars, let's say, dissatisfied with their own culture that are going out there trying to find something more. We're guilty of that. We are the ones who tend to look at things in a greater context than what the people who are practicing themselves do. So, in summary, no, John never talked to me about Chan Sang Feng. He had no knowledge whatsoever of that, other than the stories that I put in the book.
Okay, thank you, sir. Kostas, in your book also, you retold the story of 2 level 51 masters in the Battle of the Immortals when Lim fought Pai Lok Nen. John said chi power could be used for good or for evil, and mastery could be achieved by a good man or a bad man.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe, sir, that there is an elite, maybe like above the Bilderberg group and the presidents that steer world agendas? Certainly the elites seem to use astrology and numerology, but is it possible that a few of them may be similar to John Chang and have similar powers?
And why would they have an interest in civilization? Let me counter that question with yours.
My assumption.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, sir. Yeah, my assumption, sir, for that question was that for for them to be able to be in such control of society at the moment, I would have assumed that maybe they would use something similar, some technique or power similar to what John Chang might have to be able to take an advantage of society.
Yeah, but why would they want to take an advantage of society? You're assuming that somebody that escalates to a given level still has an interest in everyday affairs. That's not always the case. I would say the more removed they are, the more independent they are of our own personal desires and whims. I mean, I'll tell you a story that really has nothing to do with somebody that's level 52 or 72 or anything like that. It has to do with a man that I met who was a Korean master of martial arts. He masqueraded as a Taekwondo teacher, but basically his brother-in-law was Chinese, and he had developed very peculiar abilities. He used to demonstrate here in Greece by standing on fluorescent bulbs and snapping 2x4s in half, and that after inviting anyone from the crowd to try to break the 2x4 or stand on the fluorescent bulbs. This man, when I had first started training with Pak Chan, he said to me, there are people out there in hiding that the abilities of which you cannot imagine. And at that time, I was too inexperienced to really understand what he meant, but I understand it now. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, if somebody like that is in society, the thing that he desires the most is to live like a simple human being. And if they're not, then they're not. I mean, they just have no interest in it.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean, sir.
You're asking me for my opinions here. I could be right, I could be wrong. I mean...
No, I think what you're getting at is people of a certain level, they no longer need to, say, prove themselves or control things. They're above that, sort of.
Correct. Or they no longer care. I mean, you mentioned a personal duel between the two of them. Imagine what it would take, the hatred that would be required for someone to dedicate his life just to be able to duel with somebody else. So in that case, it's a very personal thing directed towards one person, not towards society in general.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Disaster Cat.
Hi. My husband has studied Eastern martial arts, and he's written books on Germanic rune staves and also practices recreated medieval combat. I noticed that you were involved in recreating a style of, I think, ancient Greek combat forms. If this is the case, do you feel there are things in common for all these disciplines, especially when it comes to the inner movings of energy that accompany the actual stylized combat? I say stylized because the idea is not to actually kill the opponent during the fight, even if the knowledge to actually kill someone may be taught as part of the training. Thank you.
Well, I'm not involved in recreating ancient Greek martial arts or medieval martial arts. I'm involved in recreating martial art that was taught in my own village until the Second World War, that my grandfather studied. He attempted to show this to me circa 1983 when he was still alive, but at that time I was too young and powerful and immortal and knew better, of course, having done judo and karate, so I really wasn't interested in what he was trying to show me. And to be honest, at that time I had no idea that this martial art existed. I just found this out circa 2002, 2003 by repairing a wall in my house and finding photos, which led me to further research, and I found further photos in libraries and this and that, and much to my amazement, I found that a martial art, a well-documented martial art, was taught in Greece during the 19th century, and that's what I'm trying to recreate. So, no, I'm not trying to recreate ancient Greek martial arts. I think we've gone a long way past the phalanx and the shield and the spear. To answer the second part of your question, yes, I believe that there are universal principles underlying all of this. I believe that until very recent times, it was part of our culture. I mean, you have to understand, I was born in the U.S. I moved back to Greece when I was 12, and I went from a metropolitan environment to a very small mountain village near the Albanian border, where people still farmed and raised sheep and saw spirits at night and had very different belief systems. So I view everything I've done is within this context, and I've been privileged to touch this past generation within my own life, the way that they lived. And so, you know, I think that's something that we've lost in the West. And I think that's one reason that we're so desperate to investigate Eastern culture. I mean, I'm not Chinese. It would be very difficult for me to become Chinese. But what I believe that we in the West are seeking in Oriental culture is something that we have lost, that we need. And as our society has become more structured and mechanized, this aspect of it has been lost, much like it's being lost in the East right now. I mean, the Orient now is not what it was 20 years ago, and most certainly not what it was 30 years ago. So I don't know if I'm rambling on or if I've answered your question, Disaster Cat, but...
Pretty much. The reason that I was asking about these similarities was because one of the most amazing combats I ever saw in our medieval group was between two fighters who had martial arts training, and you could really feel the energy swirling around between them. It was like the air itself was almost on fire. And even though I don't fight myself, I did find this really interesting and wondered if on some basic level you felt that training and moving of energy or the chi or whatever it's called in a particular tradition was as important as training the body and how to move when engaging in this kind of a combat or sport.
I don't think that they're separate things. I definitely believe that there is something that exists that we as Western physics don't have a name for as of yet, although if you look at our physical model, we understand that there's something missing. But I don't think that it's something separate that you can train separately. In other words, you train your body, you train this energy, you train your emotions, you train your mind. The way that I teach somebody is I'll take them through a process where the first thing I'll do is I'll train their body. And then the next thing I'll do is I'll teach them how to control their emotions as much as possible, or to become one with their emotions. That would be a better word. And the third thing would be to train your mind so that you don't get upset in the middle of a confrontation. And then I'll teach them how to enhance their energetic process. Because what happens is if you go any other way, you can make yourself more emotional or more upset or less in control of your mind or all these things. So energy is just one aspect of anything to do with combat or life or anything like that.
Yes, my husband has mentioned the anger control problem as being one of the hardest things to teach young fighters. I really appreciate your answer, and I want to thank you because it was really interesting. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Costa, this is Free Spirit, and we were wondering what level of Nate Kung you've advanced to and what special skills you've now acquired. And we also were curious to know if working through the levels of Nate Kung have affected you as a person, and what are some of the things that you've been able to